Sure. Here's section 1 fully fleshed out with a minimum of 700 words asterisk. Hashtag section 1. The incursion begins. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the cold steel of Outpost Eos, shimmering like ancient sentinels in the void. Nestled on the edge of humanity's frontier, the outpost was both a beacon and a warning, the furthest reach of Terran expansion into the Perseus arm of the galaxy. Captain Elena Ramirez stood in the observation deck, gazing out at the quiet beauty of space, unaware that it was about to be shattered. "Captain," came the sharp voice of Lieutenant Harker from the ops deck, "we've got something inbound." Elena turned to the tactical console. The sensor display flickered, glitching as it tried to process the data. "Unidentified vessel," Harker reported, fingers flying across the console. "It's fast. Faster than anything we've logged." FTL signatures off the chart. The outpost shuddered faintly as proximity alerts blared. The red glow of emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across the bridge. "Get me visuals," Ramirez ordered, her voice calm but laced with tension. Within moments, the main screen lit up with the image of an alien warship. It was like nothing human engineers could have conceived. The vessel was colossal, dwarfing the outpost's largest defense platforms. Its hull shimmered with a liquid metal sheen, shifting as if it was alive. Spires and ridges jutted from its surface, crackling with arcs of green energy. "Not one of ours," Ramirez muttered. "Never seen anything like it, Captain," Harker added. "No matches in the first contact archives. They're just sitting there." Ramirez's gut told her this wasn't a chance encounter. Humanity had made contact with a handful of alien species since venturing beyond the solar system, mostly traders, diplomats, or scavengers. But this ship radiated power and menace, something far beyond the usual exploratory craft. A sudden ping interrupted her thoughts. "Incoming transmission." Communications Officer Liao called out. "It's heavily encrypted, Captain. AI-assisted decryption in progress now. Put it through when ready." Static filled the bridge as the signal resolved. Then, the image appeared on the main screen, a towering alien clad in dark, ornate armor that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Its features were sharp and reptilian, eyes like twin embers, and behind it stretched the throne room of its ship, adorned with banners marked in strange glyphs. "I am Captain Zervok of the Ralzar Dominion," the alien announced, voice deep and resonant, echoing with an unnatural reverb. "Your kind has trespassed where none shall tread." A chill settled over the bridge. "Identify yourselves," Zervok demanded, "and prepare to receive our judgment." Ramirez took a step forward, steel in her spine. "This is Captain Elena Ramirez of the Terran Federation. We are explorers and settlers of this frontier. We come in peace." Zervok's nostrils flared, and his eyes narrowed. "Peace? Your species spreads like wildfire, consuming, multiplying without understanding the ancient laws that govern this expanse." "Ancient laws," Ramirez echoed. "This territory is marked," Zervok growled. "Humanity must withdraw immediately. Violation will not be tolerated." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Ramirez's mind raced. No intelligence reports had mentioned the Ralzar. Were they a dormant empire or a faction hidden beyond the known borders? Either way, this wasn't a bluff. "Captain, I'm detecting a buildup of energy," Harker warned. "That thing's powering up a weapon, something we haven't seen before." "Shields up," Ramirez ordered. "Hold your fire." For a tense moment, both sides stared each other down. "We did not cross any borders," Ramirez insisted, trying to keep her voice even. "No other species has laid claim to this region." "Because none dare," Zervok said coldly. "Others remember what your kind has forgotten. The Dominion watches. The Dominion remembers. You are warned. Leave or be erased." The screen went black. For a heartbeat, the bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. "Captain," Liao finally said, voice hushed, "should we alert Central Command?" Ramirez nodded slowly. "Do it." As the crew scrambled, Ramirez's eyes were drawn back to the alien warship. It loomed just beyond the asteroid belt like a predator circling its prey. Her thoughts drifted to the past. Humanity's first forays into space had been bold but cautious. Treaties were signed, alliances forged. The Confederacy of Aurea, the neutral Volari traders, none had ever issued threats, only warnings of natural dangers like solar storms or pirate enclaves. But this was different. What did we stumble into? She whispered to herself. Outside, the alien ship's weapon systems dimmed, but the threat lingered. Like a blade unsheathed, ready to strike. The bridge buzzed with activity as Ramirez leaned against the console, mind racing. If the Ralzar were truly an ancient force guarding this region, why now? Why had they remained silent until humanity's arrival here? She could feel it, the invisible boundary they had unknowingly crossed. A line drawn long before humans walked the stars. And now it was too late to step back. Would you like me to continue straight into Section 2 next? Absolutely. Here's Section 2 with at least 700 words. Hashtag Section 2, the captain's warning. The silence following the transmission was heavy, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. On the bridge of Outpost Eos, Captain Ramirez paced slowly, her mind wrestling with the implications of the aliens' words. They had encountered threats before, but never a sovereign power issuing ultimatums from the shadows of history. Try hailing them again, Ramirez ordered. We need to open a dialogue. Yes, Captain, Liao replied, though her voice carried little hope. The screen crackled to life a moment later, and there stood Captain Zervok once more, his towering figure unflinching, expression unreadable beneath the faint glow of his battle helm. Behind him, alien crew members moved in disciplined silence across the bridge of the Ralzar vessel, a chilling testament to the rigid military might of the Dominion. You remain, Zervok said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Ramirez stood tall, projecting the calm and resolve expected of a Terran captain. We did not come seeking conflict. Humanity's mandate is exploration and peaceful colonization. If there are territories we are unaware of, we are willing to discuss terms. Zervok tilted his head, the faintest trace of amusement flashing in his emberlit eyes. You speak as if you are the first, he said, voice a low growl. Others have spoken similarly before you. The alien's taloned hand waved, and behind him, a holographic display materialized, worlds reduced to ash and ruin, shattered planets drifting as debris fields across sectors unknown to human maps. These were once thriving civilizations, Zervok said grimly. Races who reached too far, too fast. They spread unchecked, much like your kind. But their arrogance blinded them, and so they were culled. Culled? Ramirez asked sharply. The Ralzar Dominion is the appointed guardian of this quadrant, Zervok replied, a responsibility passed down through millennia. We watched as the last cycle fell to chaos. Balance was broken when lesser species devoured resources, destabilized entire sectors, and waged wars heedless of the cost. You judge us based on others, Ramirez countered. Humanity has made mistakes, but we learn, we grow. Growth unchecked is corruption, Zervok shot back. You are seedlings that risk choking the garden. Ramirez's crew shifted uncomfortably, absorbing the Dominion's worldview. This was no pirate lord or regional warlord. Zervok spoke as a steward of an ancient authority, one that viewed entire species as either maintainers of balance or threats to galactic harmony. Your presence here is a violation, Zervok continued. This frontier is forbidden. By crossing into these systems, you have triggered ancient laws. Ramirez crossed her arms. We've charted dozens of worlds here. None were marked, none claimed. How are we to obey laws written in shadows? For a moment, Zervok was silent. When he finally spoke, there was something softer beneath the gruff command in his voice. You are children, ignorant of the war that came before you, he said. But ignorance does not absolve you. His words weighed heavy on the bridge crew. Ramirez steadied herself. Then help us understand. What law governs this space? Who gave you this authority? The alien captain's gaze hardened once more. The old accord. signed in blood and forged in the ashes of fallen empires. It grants the dominion over this expanse, and it will not be broken. A flicker of unease passed across Ramirez's face. The accord is unknown to us. There has been no galactic council or collective that shared this knowledge. You were never invited, Zervok replied coldly. The races of the core worlds know. The Volari, the Zythar, even the silent ones of the Rift, they obey. Ramirez's jaw clenched. We've traded with the Volari. They never mentioned any forbidden zones. Because you've lingered on the fringes, Zervok replied. Until now. A subtle tremor ran through the outpost as more signals flashed on the tactical display. Ramirez's stomach sank. Captain, Harker interrupted, voice taut with alarm. Multiple FTL signatures inbound. 6 more vessels, Ralzar warships. They're surrounding us. Ramirez didn't flinch, but the gravity of the situation settled like iron on her chest. They're blockading us. They're sending a message, Harker said grimly. Zervok's lips curled faintly. You will not leave this system without consent. The bridge crew looked to Ramirez, waiting for her next move. Your kind's resilience intrigues me, Zervok added, tone almost curious. But defiance will not save you. Ramirez's eyes burned with resolve. Humanity has stood against worse odds. We don't cower in the dark. The alien captain's gaze lingered on her. Perhaps, but even lions fall to the swarm. There was something ancient and unsettling about the certainty in Zervok's voice. Yet, buried within it was also a subtle hint of recognition, an unspoken acknowledgement of humanity's fire. Your ultimatum is clear, Ramirez said firmly. But we will not retreat without due cause. Not without understanding. Zervok's final words reverberated across the bridge. Then prepare, Captain Ramirez. Soon, you will understand far more than you wish to. With that, the transmission ended. The outpost fell into tense silence. Ramirez exhaled slowly, her thoughts already racing ahead. She could feel the Dominion's noose tightening around them. But if this alien captain thought humanity would go quietly, he was sorely mistaken. Would you like me to dive into Section 3 next? Sure. Here's Section 3 with at least 700 words. Hashtag Section 3. Clash of Wills. The command chamber of Outpost Eos felt more like a pressure cooker than a military hub. Captain Ramirez stood at the head of the holotable, surrounded by her senior officers, while the looming holographic image of Earth's high command flickered in the air before them. The faces of admirals, generals, and counselors filled the space, each carrying the same uneasy expression. Captain Ramirez, Admiral Stroud began. We've reviewed your report. This Ralzar Dominion, how credible is this threat? Ramirez crossed her arms. Admiral, with all due respect, the Dominion just blockaded us with 7 warships capable of wiping us off the star map. I'd say it's more than credible. Murmurs rippled through the remote participants, but General Carter was less concerned. Are we sure this isn't an isolated faction? A rogue warlord flexing muscle? I don't believe so, Ramirez replied firmly. Captain Zervok speaks with authority. The Dominion's doctrine feels ancient, calculated. They have the discipline and technology to back their claims. And they've set a boundary, Counselor Vashari chimed in. One we apparently crossed. The room grew tense. Orders, sir? Ramirez pressed. Stroud leaned forward. We can't afford a galactic war, Captain. But neither can we afford to lose our forward colonies. Humanity's foothold in the Persis Arm is strategic, economically and politically. Carter nodded. Stand your ground, but avoid escalation. Buy us time. We'll mobilize reinforcements, though it could take weeks. Weeks we don't have, Ramirez thought grimly. She killed the hololink and turned to her officers. Harker, Liao, and the rest looked to her with a mixture of expectation and unease. What's our next move, Captain? Harker asked. Ramirez's fingers drummed on the table. We stall. Defensive posture only. No provocations. Until they attack first, Liao murmured. Ramirez didn't respond, but the answer was clear. Hashtag aboard the Ralzar flagship. In the Dominion warship's command chamber, Captain Zervok observed the outpost through a vast observation window. His fleet drifted silently around Outpost Eos, positioning themselves like wolves encircling prey. Beside him, Subcommander Relzeth shifted uneasily. "You hesitate, Captain," Relzeth said. "They are intruders. Give the order, and we purge them." Zervok's jaw tightened. Humanity is complicated. Relzeth raised a scaled brow ridge. Complicated? They are reckless. Expansionist. Like the Squar, the Vrothai. All extinguished, as the Accord demands. Zervok turned sharply, voice low and dangerous. And yet, unlike those, the humans fight with purpose. They bond, adapt. Their worlds are scarred by war, but they rise again. Relzeth sneered. Romanticism. Their flame will burn out like the others. Zervok returned his gaze to the outpost. Memories of past conflicts gnawed at him, the screams of civilizations culled under orders from the Dominion High Council. It was duty, necessary for galactic stability, but still, the echoes haunted him. "I have seen arrogance in countless species," Zervok murmured. "But humanity, there is defiance, yes, but also resilience." Relzeth's voice dripped with venom. "Resilience is not immunity." "No," Zervok agreed. "But perhaps it is potential." Hashtag tensions on the edge. Back aboard Outpost Eos, the tension was thick enough to choke on. "Captain, Ralzar drones approaching the outer perimeter," Harker reported. "Numbers?" Ramirez asked. "2 squadrons. Scanning us." Ramirez clenched her fists. "No engagement unless they cross into our inner defense ring." The drones, spiked orbs bristling with sensor arrays and weapon pods, crept closer like metallic vultures. Fighters launched from Eos, shadowing the drones without firing, but nerves frayed on both sides. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, without warning, a drone's energy weapon flared. "Shields taking light fire," Liao shouted. "Return fire, only enough to drive them back," Ramirez ordered. The sky above the outpost lit with streaks of plasma and kinetic rounds. The human fighters held their own, deftly forcing the drones to retreat. No casualties, but the skirmish left everyone rattled. "They're probing us," Ramirez muttered. "Testing our resolve." Hashtag an unforeseen third party. Before Ramirez could issue new orders, a second alert rang out. "Captain," Harker barked. "Another fleet entering the system, non-Ralzar." "Friendlies?" Ramirez asked. "ID confirmed, it's the Elisari." Relief and suspicion mingled on Ramirez's face. The Elisari were a reclusive but respected species. While they rarely involved themselves in border disputes, their technological prowess rivaled that of the Dominion. The sleek, crystalline ships of the Elisari materialized from hyperspace, positioning themselves equidistant from both human and Ralzar forces. A new comm channel opened. A serene, androgynous figure appeared, High Mediator Kalen of the Elisari Ascendancy. "Terran vessel," Kalen greeted. "Captain Ramirez, we sensed a destabilization in this quadrant." Zervok's image quickly joined the channel, voice sharp. "The Elisari have no jurisdiction here." "Nor do the Dominion," Kalen replied calmly. "The Accord is ancient, but the galaxy has changed." Ramirez watched carefully as Kalen turned to her. "Humanity, whether knowingly or not, treads upon contested space," Kalen explained. "A war here will reverberate far beyond this sector." Ramirez nodded. "We don't seek war, but we won't abandon our people." Kalen folded their arms. "Then you must decide quickly. Both sides stand upon a precipice." Hashtag Ramirez's dilemma. In the quiet that followed, Ramirez retreated to her ready room, staring at the holographic projection of the Dominion fleet. The decision gnawed at her: retreat and preserve lives, or stand firm and risk igniting a conflict that could cost humanity dearly. Her calm buzzed. Harker's voice came through. "Captain, we await your orders." Ramirez's gaze darkened. I need more time. Time, Harker replied grimly, is the one thing we don't have. Ramirez turned her eyes to the stars, the weight of leadership settling fully on her shoulders. She knew whatever choice she made next would ripple across the galaxy. Would you like me to move right into Section 4? Absolutely. Here's Section 4 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 4, Humanity's Stand. Captain Ramirez stepped onto the bridge with renewed determination. The crew, though worn from hours of tense standoffs and near skirmishes, straightened as she entered. Ramirez's expression alone told them that hesitation had been cast aside. Status, she asked. Harker gestured to the tactical display. The Ralzar ships are holding formation. The Elisari remain neutral, positioned between us and them. Ramirez nodded. The time for waiting is over. A hushed silence settled as all eyes turned to her. We are staying, Ramirez announced firmly. This outpost is a sovereign installation of the Terran Federation. We will not be bullied off our own frontier. Relief and anxiety mingled on her officers' faces. Harker gave a small nod. Acknowledged, Captain. Signal the Dominion, Ramirez ordered. I'll speak to Zervok directly. Moments later, the imposing figure of Captain Zervok reappeared on the bridge's main display, arms crossed over his chestplate, embers glowing in his eyes. You choose defiance, he said, voice echoing through the room. I choose resolve, Ramirez replied, calm but unwavering. Humanity won't yield. We are willing to negotiate, but we will not abandon our people. Zervok studied her, then slowly exhaled through flared nostrils. Bravery or foolishness? Sometimes they're the same, Ramirez quipped, hiding the knot in her stomach. Zervok glanced to someone off-screen, likely his subcommander. Understand this, Captain Ramirez. If you refuse to leave, the Dominion will act. You cannot stand against us. Perhaps not alone, Ramirez said, glancing to the Elisari fleet lingering in the distance. But we are not alone. Zervok's expression darkened. Do not presume the Elisari will save you. They don't need to, Ramirez replied. They've already changed the game. Zervok remained silent. Ramirez pressed on. You claim to uphold the accord, but your actions risk violating the very balance you claim to protect. If humanity is truly the threat you believe, then let the galactic community decide, not just the Dominion. Zervok's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat, Ramirez thought he might cut the feed and open fire. But instead, the alien captain gave a slow, begrudging nod. You seek arbitration. We seek fairness, Ramirez countered. We will not be the next name on your list of extinct species. For the first time, something like respect flickered across Zervok's face. Hashtag the standoff. As hours passed, the Dominion fleet maintained its blockade, weapons primed, but held their fire. The Elisari remained steadfast, forming a neutral line. Outpost Eos continued to buzz with preparations. Engineering teams fortified bulkheads, fighter squadrons remained on high alert, and the crew cycled between tense watch shifts. In the ready room, Ramirez conferred with Kalen via a private channel. The Dominion respects strength, Kalen advised. But more importantly, they respect precedent. By invoking arbitration, you force them to consider options beyond outright war. Will they listen? Ramirez asked. They will hesitate, Kalen replied, and hesitation is survival. Ramirez leaned back, exhaling. You knew about the accord. Kalen nodded. Our ancestors were signatories long ago. But unlike the Dominion, we have evolved past rigid enforcement. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Why intervene now? Kalen's gaze softened. Because humanity is different. You adapt. You endure. The stars are watching to see what you become. The connection ended, leaving Ramirez to reflect on the words. Hashtag the captain's decision. Later that cycle, another transmission arrived. Zervok stood once more before Ramirez, his armor now adorned with ceremonial regalia. The Dominion Council has received my report, he said. You will be granted a temporary reprieve. Ramirez's crew leaned forward. Zervok continued. You may remain for now. But understand this. The accord is not dissolved. Should you continue to expand unchecked into forbidden sectors, there will be no further warnings. Ramirez nodded, holding his gaze. We'll respect your laws where they are made known, but we will not be leashed by fear. Zervok's lips twitched, perhaps the closest he came to a smile. You are bold, Captain Ramirez. Perhaps dangerously so. Humanity has always been a little dangerous, Ramirez replied. The alien's form flickered as the transmission ended. Cheers broke out on the bridge, but Ramirez raised a hand to quiet them. This isn't over, she said quietly. We've bought time, nothing more. ###legacy of the encounter. The Elisari fleet remained long enough to ensure the Dominion's withdrawal. As the Ralzar ships faded into the depths of space, Outpost Eos returned to cautious normalcy. In her log, Ramirez recorded the event. First direct contact with the Ralzar Dominion has shifted the balance of our frontier expansion. Their warnings must be taken seriously, but so too must humanity's right to chart its destiny. The stars will not be denied to us. Across human space, news of the standoff spread quickly. Colonists, soldiers, and politicians debated what it meant for humanity's future. The Perseus arm was no longer a silent expanse of empty stars. It was contested territory, filled with ancient secrets and powerful guardians. Yet there was pride too. Humanity had stood its ground, not through superior firepower, but through courage, diplomacy, and sheer will. Ramirez gazed once more into the starry abyss, knowing that Captain Zervok would be watching, waiting. And deep down, a part of her hoped they would meet again, not as enemies, but as equals. For in that moment, she understood the unspoken truth behind Zervok's warning. The Dominion feared humanity not just for what they were, but for what they could become. Would you like me to also help create a closing or an epilogue to tie it all together?